What does the oldest brick building in Kokshetau look like? What kind of clothes did the steppe aristocracy wear 2 centuries ago? What can surprise tourists in the exposition of the Akmola Regional Museum of History and Local Law? We will find this out in the new episode of Welcome to Kazakhstan project. The Akmola region has always taken an important place in the history of Kazakhstan. Here, according to the legend, Han Abulai was raised on a white felt mat. Here, Kinesari Khan used to rest and hunt. What other interesting facts can we learn about this region? To find this out, we came to the city of Kokshetau, to one very interesting museum. This is Welcome to Kazakhstan project. My name is Zakirjan Mamlutov. Let's broaden our horizons. It's hard to believe, but once a wine warehouse was located within these walls. It was built by one of the richest people in the city, merchant Gennady Frantsevich Shmurlo. But first, no alcohol law and then the revolution put an end to the wine business. During the years of the Soviet authority, the building has been a prison, a hospital, an archive, a secret workshop for the production of mechanisms, and even a distillery. Until in 1974, the Akmola Regional Museum of History and Local Law moved here, which remains in this building to this day. The building is a classic example of industrial architecture from the early 20th century and refers to eclecticism. By the way, it is believed that this is one of the first brick buildings in the city of Kokshetau. The exposition has several halls, including an exhibition hall. As in most local history museums, the visitor is invited to take a journey through the history of the region, starting from ancient times. But before you plunge into the past, you should get acquainted with the natural resources of the Akmola region. The whole nature. Here it is definitely not to be missed, because in the Akmola region there are several recreational zones of world importance. This is, first of all, the Burabai National Park. Well, you should not forget about the Korgalzhin Reserve. You can start your acquaintance with the flora and fauna of these places from here. The journey into the past begins with the Hall of Paleontology. Here you can take a look at the ancient inhabitants of the planet, which population has not survived to this day. We are talking about the woolly rhinoceros, the aurochs, the megalosaurus, and of course the mammoth. The secrets of the museum were revealed to us by the guide Gulden Akushkarova.
Здесь мы видим реконструкцию трехлетнего мамонта. Мамонты тоже обитали.
We see here a reconstruction of a 3-year-old mammoth. Mammoth also lived in our region. In appearance, mammoths resembled modern elephants. 3.5 meters, so 4 meters tall, weigh 4.7 tons. Here we have not real bones. This is a reconstruction, and real mammoth bones can be seen in these 2 showcases. For example, a mammoth tooth. The mammoth had 4 such large teeth and 2 tusks. One tooth weighed from 1 to 3 kilograms.
So, were all these bones found in the Akmola region?
Yes, all these bones that are in this hall were found on the territory of our region. For example, here's a skull with horns. The megalosaurus lived at that time on the territory of our region. It was found in the Burabai district, near the village of Бармашино.
Было найдено на территории Бурабайского района, то есть близ села Бармашино.
That is, these bones were found as a result of archaeological excavations, or did people bring them?
Every year, the employees of our museum conduct archaeological excavations and expeditions. During expeditions, some exhibits are found. Sometimes people themselves donate exhibits to the museum.
Perhaps someone has large bones at home and they don't even know that these are the bones of a real mammoth.
Maybe.
Maybe. Therefore, bring them all to the Akmola Museum of History and Local Law. The Hall of Archaeology, finds from the Stone Age to the early Iron Age. It is here where you can see what the site of a primitive man looked like and how women of the Bronze Age dressed up. Also here you can make sure that it was in Kazakhstan in the 4th millennium BC where the horse was first tamed.
Еще один такой интересный факт. Именно во время бронзового века женщины начали надевать украшения. То есть в этих двух витринах.
Another interesting fact is that during the Bronze Age, women began to wear jewelry. In these two showcases, we have authentic exhibits, the first women's decorations of the Bronze Age. We can also see the reconstruction of women's clothing. The author is a well-known archaeologist historian, арқылы Abdulina. According to her version, a costume of women's clothing of the Bronze Age looked like this. This is also reconstruction.
Of particular interest are the halls ethnography and Kokshetau. After all, the halls tell us about the culture of the Kazakh people, their way of life and the traditions of the steppe.
Kokshetau – это жилище, приспособленное к зимнему периоду, по древним традициям кочевого.
Kokshetau is a dwelling adapted for the winter period. According to the Asian traditions of the nomadic and semi-nomadic lifestyle of the Kazakhs, the livestock breeding cycle of the year was divided into 4 periods. There are Kokshetau, winter, Kokteu, spring, Kuzeu, autumn, and Jailao, summer. If they lived in yurts on the Jailao, then in winter they lived in such Kokshetau dwellings. There must have been a stove in the house. The dishes were all made from natural materials. These are wood, bone, leather, and so on. Such dishes were convenient for transportation as the people were nomadic. All exhibits that are in this hall belong to the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century.
In this hall, everything is dedicated to the great ruler of the Kazakh people, Abulay Khan. Look how the clothes of the society elite looked like 200 years ago. In front of you is a gold-embroidered chapan of the grandson of Abulay Khan, Shungiz Wali Khan. And here are the valuable jewelry of the niece of the great Kazakh ethnographer, Shokan Wali Khanov. The next halls of the exposition are dedicated to the history of the region in the 19th and 20th centuries. The pre-revolutionary life of the Akmola region is vividly shown in the panorama of a fair. In the reconstructed room of a wealthy merchant, an observant visitor will find many interesting household items. It is especially interesting to look at consumer goods that are more than 100 years old. The times of repressions are a difficult topic in the history of the Kazakh people. Veronika Antipova told us more about the thematic hall dedicated to those years. Veronica, as far as I understand, this hall was opened recently. Why exactly there is a hall which is associated with repressions?
31 мая 2022 года в Акмольском областном историко-краеведческом музее.
On May 31st, 2022, the hall dedicated to the victims of totalitarianism and Stalin's repressions was opened in the Akmola Region Museum of Local History. Since the Akmola camp of the wives of motherland's traitors was located in our region, therefore this topic cannot be ignored in the local history museum. Diving into history, one can recall that in the 30s, people with machine guns came to the families of intelligentsia throughout the Soviet Union. They were representatives of the NKVD. They took the men under arrest, accusing them of being enemies of the people. The men themselves did not understand why they were awarded, in quotation marks, this title. After some time, NKVD people returned to their homes and told the women that they could visit their relatives and friends. Since these were intelligentsia, women put on the most beautiful outfits, sophisticated dresses, beautiful hats, shoes, and set off. For a long time, they waited in the administrative corridors, not knowing that they were waiting for a warrant for their arrest. From there, fraudulently, they were loaded into red freight wagons, not intended for the people transportation, and were sent to the bitter cold of Algiers. By the way, Algiers is the abbreviation for Akmola camp for wives of motherland's traitors. The abbreviation was invented by the women prisoners themselves. The correct official name of the camp was the 26th point or the 17th section of the Karlak. These were harsh conditions. Women were imprisoned along with their children. When children reached the age of 3, they were taken away from their mothers and sent to the specialized orphanages. Many children died during their transportation. Those who survived had their names and surnames changed so that they could never be reunited with their loved ones.
Меняли имена и фамилии, чтобы они никогда не смогли воссоединиться со своими родными и близкими.
In 2020, the museum turned 100 years old. It's hard to believe, but its exposition began with 130 items, and those were obtained from school collections or seized from the White Guards. At the moment, the museum funds has more than 80,000 items of storage. The World War II is the most terrible event of the 20th century and perhaps of the entire history of mankind. The war had also affected Kokshetau, which is reflected in the exposition. At the most honorable place in the hall, there is a list of the Soviet Union heroes, natives of the Akmola region. There are also photographs of soldiers, their biographies, descriptions of military exploits. In the showcases, there are weapons of that time, propaganda posters, orders, medals, and modest soldiers' dishes. In 2019, an update of the museum exposition was held with the use of modern technologies. Multimedia screens and information kiosks were installed. Something new is always there for the guests of the exhibition hall, from paintings by Kazakh artists to the presentation of jewelry in the national style. Local history exhibitions are regularly held, dedicated, among other things, to the latest data from archaeological expeditions. All regions of Kazakhstan are unique, have their own secrets. Therefore, acquaintance with the country is impossible without getting to know its regions. The Akmola Museum of History and Local Lore is an excellent starting point for immersing yourself in the history of Kazakhstan. So please, come and see for yourself.